Welcome. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are watching African Hour. My name is Fru Nde Nkimbe. I am coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts, USA. African Hour has been on the air since 2000, and we bring our guests from all over the world to talk about their own issue. African Hour does not control what our guests say. Today's guest is unique in the 20-year history of African Hour. I have women of valor, mothers, grandmothers, and role models from our mother continent, Africa, coming all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa, to share their experience, their journey, which I think is going to mirror those of African women and also inspire the African woman, daughter, the mother, and our grandmother. So it's my distinguished pleasure and humility to welcome Miss Miriam Sohate. Miss Miriam was born and bred in Soweto, in Johannesburg, South Africa. She is a loving mother, human rights activist. She went on exile during the South African liberation struggle against apartheid at a very early age. She worked and served at various levels in the South African government. She is passionate about women's development issue. Ms. Swat Hatse, you are very welcome. Next, I'd like to introduce my next guest, Ms. Corette Lotjani, all the way coming from Johannesburg, South Africa. Miss Lotjani, you are very welcome on African Hour, sister.
I want to refer you, Colette, to Mandela. Mandela said, when he taught us in the ANC, he said, he will fight white domination in all its forms, isn't it? But he also said, I will also fight my own people if they do the same things that the apartheid system did. Meaning that maybe our fail, because you talk about community involvement. The people should guard jealously this struggle, rot, or where they see injustices, where they see the breaking of the promise. They should hold the leaders accountable. And I think they're beginning to do that. The class of June 16, the youth of the 70s and the youth before that have accomplished their chapter. Our youth must rise and defend this democracy and challenge all of us for not living up to the promises that we have made. I'm sorry, I just wanted to raise that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would equally agree with you that, all over Africa, when the colonial master is living, they give you democracy, but they hold the means of production, they hold the means of power, and they think that you can make it. And we go around celebrating democracy on paper. But he who holds the government is the person who controls the economy, is the person who controls the monetary system, is the person who controls the military, and is the person who controls the sources of labor. But all over Africa, they set that up so that we fail. But I think that there's a new generation of Africans coming up now because we have studied with them. And I would equally call on my fellow Africans that the Europeans use the media to magnify their strength and to magnify their importance. We should also use our own media to reflect back into our traditional belief that held us up till now, the beliefs of Ubuntu, the beliefs of hard work, that our parents who never went to school, they were able to sacrifice all to make us travel around the world. But unfortunately, we are coming back now in white man habit. Even though we look black, we are even worse than the white man. I grew up in the village. And even though I am out of the village, it is the village that is taking me around the world. And that discipline that was given to me in the village, I already told all of you that I was an orphan. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise an orphan. And with that spirit, I always give tribute that I am who I am today because of the village. So, Miss Colette, you are listening, and I believe your activism took you to Cameroon. You were not allowed in. So I would really thank all of you that your activism in South Africa, where you were born, ignited that courage, and you became torchbearers, carrying that same spirit and that same light, spreading it across Africa. So, Colette, if you could share a little bit of your journey and how you were treated in Cameroon for my Cameroonian audience to listen that and know that even though you are in South Africa, your activism stretches beyond South Africa. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was quite interesting listening to Miriam's journey as well, and just to imagine the area where she mentioned she was born or lived in Malapo, that we are not far away from each other. Because Miriam, if you know the shops called Uncle Sam, the Uncle Sam shops, and so I am there at there's a church called a Roman Catholic Church as well. So I'm right, my home was just there at the corner, that corner house, as you turn into the Roman Catholic Church. So that's where I was born, that's where we lived. Yeah. So, and I must say that Lesotho really did a great job on me, providing me that education. I mean, you do your O levels, and I was able to do my O levels, and I passed. And I it was not easy to be in Lesotho, by the way, because Lesotho was like when my parents were preparing to take us there, I had another imagination about the place, that it will be like, you remember how South Africa looked like in apartheid era. It was clean, very developed. So I thought Lesotho epitomized that kind of a developed state. And it was quite rural. The development was not as advanced as in South Africa. The people in Lesotho still dependent on South Africa economically, for employment, for various things. So to the extent that we were not safe in Lesotho, my movement in and out of South Africa into Lesotho, and those that were received as asylum seeker. I was not an asylum seeker. I was allowed a permit, but I was always in trouble to pass the borders, to explain why I'm studying in Lesotho, why I'm not in the country. So my dad was always explaining, and it was, will be held for several hours, under interrogation, having to explain all these things. So I got that education, and I remember I had friends. I was also used to transport stuff, like communicate letters, needs of our counterpart who could not come back to South Africa, who were like asylum seekers. So my journey was a risky one all the time, bringing stuff, collecting, sending messages, and I escaped death when the refugee camp in Lesotho was under attack by the apartheid regime. They went in there and they bombed, they were shooting. Some of the friends I grew up with died in that political or the intervention by the apartheid South Africa. It was like a matter of few days I was with them, and I just escaped death by a day or hours from that area where the shooting took place. And then, my anger for my country grew, and every time I come back and move around, I had to be carrying an identity document. So I remember one day I was not carrying it because, you rebel. As well, you get so angry and you don't care. And they met me somewhere in Park Station, next to the Park Station in Plain Street. I was stopped and I was asked to produce that ID. And I said, I don't have it, I don't carry it. And then they say, well, you don't carry it, you must go into the van. So I said to this person, you are wasting my time. I was really rude. And then he led me into this. Inside, it was so horrible. It was so humiliating. There were all sorts of people in there. I was feeling that my life was in danger. They drove to the, we're talking about bribery. I saw bribery. I saw a man giving a policeman something, and not a white policeman, but a black policeman. And the police that were arresting us, it was not white, so, per se. It was our own black African policeman. So I got arrested. We got dumped at the John Foster Square, and walking that next to that police station, it was an offense in itself. We could easily be arrested. Same applies to where we now have the Constitutional Court Hill. It was called Number 4. Walking around those areas, it was an offense on itself and amounting to arrest. So they arrested me, and I was prepared to die. They were asking me my name. They were asking me where I'm from, where I live. I just look at them like, shoot me, kill me, in that. And they were leaving me speaking to other people. I was just looking at them like this, like ready for them to slap me, to torture me, to do whatever. And they got angry, and then they threw me out. They said, you can go, get out. That's how I got released. And I was so disorientated. The police station, to walk, going home, I didn't even know how I get home. I managed somehow to get help, and they showed me the way to Braamfontein station, and somebody bought me a ticket or something, and I was able to get back home and went back to Lesotho. So I studied in Lesotho. The government of Lesotho is continued to be very special because it was small country, very poor, accommodating all of us, getting funding from Russia, from China, for all of us. We got educated through those help, and many others that were supporting South Africans that are scattered all over. Yes, there were those type of discriminatory comments, but it was not as bad as what we're experiencing in South Africa. I completed my education to come and further my in university, to enroll in a university. It was a struggle as well. My education was not recognized in South Africa because I'm from Lesotho, even though it's the O levels is a qualification from the UK, first world country. So I had to repeat. It was taking forever. So it was that kind of a struggle, but I managed to complete. And I found myself working in a place, legal aid bureau. And then I moved to Lawyers for Human Rights because I was working at a housing protection trust. Why I was employed there, I think my experience living in those communities where homes, land belongs to the government, you are paying rental all the time, the property does not belong to you. I saw trauma, I saw torture, I saw degradation, and people arbitrarily arrested. So I work in a housing consumer protection trust. So I was able to study those laws, the 1945 laws, when black people were moved from urban areas into the townships like Soweto, and those forceful removals, and the Land Act 1913 that was enforced to people. So that was really informative and giving more perspective and understanding what was the real cause of these discriminatory practices and conduct and the hatred. So I was really growing and getting that context. And while I was working there at Lawyers, so then apartheid was coming to an end, and we were getting freed and receiving our freedom and democracy. I was playing a big role in our community. We went around. Some people today, they say that they were never part and parcel of constitutional development of the constitution. It was a very consultative process. We were in communities, we were engaging, educating, but today when you speak like this, it's like you are speaking to foreigners in our own countries, but I can understand the young people still need to be educated. So we did a good job with leaders that are in the leading party now that contributed immensely in our society. So I grew, and my human rights got shapen when I relocated, when I moved, was promoted or headhunted to work at Lawyers for Human Rights. I continued, and they took me to Geneva, to the UN, United Nations. Then I got exposed to international law. And then I also got exposed to the African Union system. That time it was still called the OAU. So I learned to strengthen the systems of human rights based on my experience in South Africa and in Lesotho, and understanding the context, because now the border, I mean, I had a passport now. I was able to travel. I was able to engage with fellow Africans and learning more about Pan-Africanism and seeing the danger of colonization, seeing how Black people suffered as well, that actually the suffering that we are having due to apartheid in South Africa, our people in the continent are worse off. You know, it was not like they were living a better life. They were released by the colonizers. They received their independence, but they living in inhuman and degraded conditions. There is no proper sanitation. There is no proper infrastructure. There is no proper housing. The roads, for example, in Cameroon, I went in 2013, everything was fine. Building, town planning, it's as if it's non-existent. You know, there is no human dignity. We are speaking about the values of Ubuntu. We are talking about human dignity. These are the principles that we speak and maybe written. However, it's not a living law. Black people are suffering all over. And I was shocked to see that there's been those sacrifices by our sisters and brothers in the continent, and themselves were suffering. And I then got invited by my friend that I met in 2005, 2006. So she shared with me her experience in her country, what is going. So I was always amazed and shocked by Black leaders who are imposing these draconian laws, who are treating their people, Black people, just like how I was treated in South Africa by whites, by the Europeans, by the Afrikaners. And it always baffled me. And then I was invited to come to Cameroon to speak about South Africa's democracy, the peace and reconciliation, all our experience. And I received a visa and I arrived in Cameroon. The first time it was in when we went together, we were going to launch a report on freedom of association and assembly. We've been going around the continent with the special mandate holder developing this to help member states develop, enact laws that are progressive, that recognize AU treaties, protocol. And we wanted to give credit to the government of Cameroon because they've been making inroads, ratifying protocols of the AU. And then we wanted to give them this opportunity. And we all had letters, note verbal, enabling the government of Cameroon to issue us visas on arrival. And I was traveling with two Cameroonian. One is based in Uganda. The other one was based in South Africa. So we arrived, and as I presented the letter, so they shifted me on the side. And they were attending to the two gentlemen, Cameroonian, and they were telling them to proceed onto the other side to go and to collect their baggage, because they are still dealing with me. And they tried to protest, and they said to them, you know what, this is none of your business. You're going to behave and they started interrogating them on the other side. And they wrote a long letter telling me all sorts of things, that I'm going to be deported, I'm unwelcome, all sorts of information is written in French.
Colin, not to cut you short, were they talking to you in French or in English?
They were talking to me, they were expressing themselves in French. Then I said to him, I don't understand what you are saying. And then I tried to, he tried to speak in English to tell me that I'm going back into the aircraft. So when we're going back into the aircraft, I said to them, bring my luggage. I'm not leaving before that. And then the pilot of the aircraft said, was resisting to take me and say that according to international law, they are not allowed to take me back into the aircraft because they are not returning to my country. They are pursuing, they still have other journeys ahead, destination, they mention, and The person said the officer, security agent, was not bothered, was not interested, and he wanted me out. So I was very annoyed, and I surrendered. I went back into the aircraft. I made sure my luggage is back in, and they continue with the journey. From there, I can't remember, we went to Gabon, I think it was Gabon and Benin. I was so exhausted. I was so tired. I can't be booked in a business lounge, so I had to sit there, wait for the next plane, and they want me to purchase a ticket, and I was very annoyed. I was telling them, now I'm back in the Rwandan airline, they are telling me that I need to purchase the ticket and all that, but I refused. And anyway, they welcomed me. I was well welcomed in Rwanda. I was allowed to stay to refresh in a business class and to travel back home. And when I got back home, as I'm changing aircraft from this one, I'm always the last one to enter the aircraft, accompanied by security agents. I'm the last one to leave the aircraft. Like I'm a criminal, and they dumped me in South Africa, and they asked what happened. I explained to my government, and then they were surprised and they let me go. And then the second time, Cameroonian government showed me that actually what they've done or what they're doing, it was not a mistake. They will do it again. So that was in 2021 or 2022, and this time I came in alone. It was not the study group, because we were study group on freedom of association. This time around I was coming to speak about peace and security, and they helped me in a security small office there during COVID-19, and they were not complying with protocols, health protocols. They did not wear masks. They were not using sanitizers. Where we were sitting, it was very filthy. It was very bad. And I kept on asking them why I'm here. And they looked at me speaking in French. And then the person who was coming to meet me managed to enter to plead for me. And they threatened to have him arrested. My friend that time was nearly to crash. Her heart was broken. She couldn't talk. I could just hear her breathing like... That's how she was talking. She, like when a person is crying internally. And she sent lawyers to find out or to help me. And those lawyers were asking me, what is it that exactly what it is that I've done. And they were asking me if they can go and buy me water, refreshment. And I refused. I said no. I didn't trust them the way they were asking or talking to me, and until the next day. And then they sent me back home. We had to buy another ticket, and we written letters to the government of Cameroon for compensation. And I meet them at the African Union officials, and none of them wants to take responsibility. They keep on saying, no, they don't know anything about this. They are not doing anything to address this. So every time I meet them and I tell them that we incurred so much liabilities over their bad conduct, they are not willing, they're not. So I'm not allowed to be in Cameroon. And right now, this organization, RADAC, actually on Monday, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders will be speaking about the issue, because their organization now has been deregistered or stopped from functioning, suspended their resources, their funding as well, and they are now operating in Chad. And they stretched, they've been subpoenaed several times. Indicted, they received summonses to appear for charges, trumped up charges. And she's advocating for dropping of those charges. So my colleague, she's in and out. She's currently hiding in some foreign country, not wanted for promoting human rights, for promoting democracy, for promoting peace, and for promoting unity between the Franco-speaking and the Anglophone communities in Cameroon. So there's this division persisting among African people. We are not fighting for an African language. We are not fighting for African, Pan-African cultures. We've allowed these Europeans, the colonizers, to separate us. I know that Miriam did speak about what the colonizers have done, the structural visions of apartheid and the impact of it that we are still facing. The problem is why for me, it pains me that I can speak like this about the African National Congress, because the ANC is the one that has taught me human rights. It taught me to be conscious about human dignity. It taught me to be conscious about civil political rights and all the human rights we have at the UN. And for me today to be speaking like this against the African National Conference, it's so painful. It's like I can simply drink poison. This is how disappointed I am with their behavior, with how they've treated us. You know, they've betrayed us, actually. This is betrayal, because none of us would have imagined that the National Conference, ANC, can be worse than the apartheid regime. These are white people. They hate us. They hate the ANC. They hate any black person. So for the ANC to allow corruption, rampant corruption, and to allow poverty, degradation of people, the society, look at the destruction that we have. All what we needed to do was to continue fight, as you are saying, that the economy is still in the hands of a few. When are we going to overcome that? So we have expanded the journey. So the journey of a black person is still very long. What we are seeing in the African continent is exactly what is happening. We are one. And you are right when you say that it pains you about this xenophobia that we are seeing. You know, South Africans are saying we were in exile, but we were not trafficking people, but we were not committing these violations of human rights. We were asking you to help us fight for democracy so that we can be free. And if we can begin to separate, you know, asylum seekers with people that are floating, that are breaking the system, and deal with, and also those who have opened up room for corruption, selling of birth certificate, selling of identity documentation, and all the manner of evilness that we are not even able to address. It's very painful. ANC was a beacon of hope, not only for South African, but the African continent. We believe in the ANC, that the ANC, it will be that party, political party, that will rescue an African person in the African continent. Because there is no freedom. There's war. There's all sorts of manipulation. There's all sorts of colonizers that are still hiding behind this democracy. Because in Cameroon, for example, the people of Cameroon, they're saying that the French government is still in control. The people are living like slaves. And there is resistance to free people. There are other African that are condoning this enslavement. They are condoning what a black person. It's as if a black person cannot go beyond what we have achieved. It's like that was it. The democracy that we saw, the freedom that we experienced, is enough. We cannot go beyond that, because what has happened now, the country is bankrupt. The municipalities are bankrupt. Service delivery is like non-existent. If we have water today or electricity, we don't know if it will be consistent. And what about the people that are living in informal settlement? What about living in Soweto, for example, in informal settlement? Crime is rampant, gender-based violence, the values, we don't even see our African values. Where are those African values? We have delayed this. And for me, I've been talking about, is human rights a foreign phenomenon? Is it something that we understand that the human rights or the human dignity is something that is inane? We are born with it as human beings, and the human dignity is not something that we should be fighting so much. It's something which is natural that we should be embracing. Right now, a black person, it has got no dignity. We are disappointed. We are let down by our own black, not white. I don't care about apartheid. I don't care about white people. I don't care about the DA. I don't care about any white a political party. I know they have got no interest. They do not have any interest whatsoever to benefit me. But the ANC is the one that we trust. The ANC is the party that has taught us, that understand our context. And for where we are, it has regressed us. We are back to square one and in a worse state of affairs. Yes, I know 30 years is as compared to 400 years, but the damage, we were not supposed to have experienced so much damage to the extent that we don't know who is who. We don't know who to trust. We don't know who to talk to. We don't know when to go back, when things will come right. We are working hard. We are back. We fear to speak right now. Somebody might be listening,
No,
we
I want to.
experience reprisals. We experience persecution as whistleblowers. Where is this? Where is it? I don't even trust it anymore. Like
Yeah,
as black, we are not, these rights are borrowed to us, Tina. We are not supposed to have. So for me,
Oh, oh,
I am really disappointed. Very, very
okay.
disappointed. Where
I think I want to come into and I'm not being, how can I say, I don't want to give an excuse to some, and I mean you're right. I want to
okay,
validate your
let me
feeling
just
about
say
being
that.
disappointed.
Hold on,
But
Miriam. Let me just say that you
yeah,
are listening to African Hour. African Hour is brought to you from Boston, Massachusetts, and your producer and host is Fru Nkimbe. African Hour is a platform for Africans to share ideas, vent our frustration, and also bring positive solutions. How we could, from our pain, see how we could forge a better future. It's good to listen to the past, but the most important is to inspire today's generation and future generation from our experiences, what we have learned, so that they can look positively and build a better future. You are watching African Hour and listening to mothers, women, African women expressing African experiences. My guests all come from Johannesburg, South Africa. You have Miss Miriam Sohate and Colette so Yanni, I'm sorry, my sister. I have wonderful guests and they are giving us wonderful experiences. Before we get back to you, Miriam, Corlette, I'd like you to think about this. And even Miriam, when you hear about Cameroon, wouldn't you say Cameroon is a bilingual country? And even going to Cameroon, you would think that they will speak English and French. That must have embarrassed you that they did not welcome you with English. Back to you, Miriam. Before Corlette, you can share your thoughts on that. We still have about 10-15 minutes to go.
all right. No, thank you, because I wanted us to come back to what inspired the discussion today, and not to sound like I'm being defensive about ANC kind of led government, but you are also in the government of national unity. That I'm not going to even. It is really disturbing to hear Colette saying the ANC led government is worse than what the apartheid did. For me, I would say, for me, it sounds extreme to go to that level, as I believe that there are many things that can be improved and there are many things that needs to be corrected. I make this example. I normally share with people in various platforms that what I'm proud of our government is upholding some elements of our constitution and democracy, the right to freedom of speech. You will never be persecuted, even for calling up on a president, sitting president, reprimanding him and raising sharp issues. In other countries, as you know, criticizing a sitting president and criticizing a political organization may land you in prison. But South Africa upholds the constitution and people are free to express how they feel about various issues. And I'm not downplaying the whole issue of critical view on how ANC-led government has performed over the past 30 years. And earlier on, I tried to indicate that reconstruction and development of our country is going to take many painful years to realize and achieve. I've indicated that we took over a system that needed to be overhauled in many ways. We had to build capacity. I'll make an example of what she talked about. And yes, I also traveled because I also worked in Dergo and I was a chief director responsible for West Africa. So yes, I had opportunities to go to Ghana, which got its independence. When was it? 1961.
Ghana, 1957.
Yes, but then I'm trying to say the issues that she's raising around disappointment when you learn in some of the countries that first got their independence and you realize that they still have such serious infrastructure backlogs. All right, road infrastructure is poor, and of course they had problems with electricity, water provision, basic amenities. For me, also was a shock because I had expected those countries to have advanced much better than countries that got their independence later. I went to Nigeria also. I was in Lagos. I also went to Abuja. The same kind of a situation. And you're also talking about African countries with rich resources, minerals, and all sorts of things. I'm trying to say here we are also in South Africa trying to rebuild our country. And remember, we're not catering for a minority here now. You are catering for the entire population, for the entire country. White apartheid was catering for few. We are catering for almost everyone, including the whites that were more privileged than us. And yes, it is true that some of us have realized that the very same people that were privileged are even more privileged now because they were better equipped to deal with the various aspects of the economy. They have the right skills. They have, the banks favored, even now they're favoring them. You enter into the system already weakest. Your risk factors are many, irrespective of whether you are a middle earner or what. You are already classified as a risk factor, but they get in. Hence their children, even before the child works, when they finish high school, they already have access to funding for a car or whatever. You can't do the same with an African child or a black child. So I'm saying the system is still continuing. Yes, I will agree that we need to move faster to skill our people, give them the correct skills so that they're fit for purpose for the needs of the economy. And I've seen this ANC-led government having done quite a lot of things that at times I feel are not appreciated to cater for the vulnerable groups, okay, whether it is women, whether it's disabled persons. So I'm saying ANC has provided for our people far much better than what apartheid did. That's a fact. Nowhere in this world would you find a government that has given people houses free. Our RDP houses are given to the vulnerable groups. Of course, the rate at which these things are provided is not acceptable, I agree. And there's a whole lot of corruption that is done by officials, by certain people. And of course, maybe to some extent, even some of the politicians, I would agree. However, as I said, remember you are catering for the whole population of South Africa, even also providing services for those that are non-South Africans. We need to improve on accountability. We need to improve on ensuring that those that are hell-bent at discrediting, the promises that we have made to the people are held accountable. Colette raised an issue of home affairs. Again, you're talking to human beings, individuals that are corrupting the system for their own personal gains. I cannot say it is the ANC that has sent these people to go and steal, but it is individuals within the ANC that go and do certain things. And these issues have been in the public. The ANC itself has admitted to say some of our people have gone out to do things that we as the ANC and our policies are not in agreement with. We didn't send them to do that. The ANC remains committed to what is stood for in terms of the people of South Africa. However, individuals within the ANC, of course, have gone out to do all sorts of negative things. But let's also not forget, as I said, the system. White privileges are still there. I told you about the banking sector itself. Just go there, the financial sector, and how they finance people in South Africa or institutions, including government. Hence, we keep on talking about transformation of the financial sector, transformation of how business is conducted in South Africa, because of course government plays a critical role, but the private sector also has to come to the fore and assist in ensuring that the gap that has been created by the apartheid and capitalist system is closed.
This is a very, very enriching discussion. Problem that the two of you are bringing forth are not only unique to South Africa. This show will be watched across the African continent, and this becomes the African spirit, the African woman looking at it from a direction that probably has never been looked at before. We are exposing what is the problem. And as we go around Africa singing democracy, whose democracy is it? Is it the African democracy or the white man's democracy? Until we start looking at our village institution that prevailed before the white man came and admired and brought their own system to destroy our own institution that we don't talk about, and we spend our time narrating and studying foreign institutions which are not in any way akin to our cultural belief, Ubuntu, that you have so well articulated. And then some people look at our culture, where you talk about the African culture, the primitive African system, they say it is not advanced, and these are code words that detach us from our roots. And we started by saying that if you worship your ancestors, you know where you are coming from, and you know that your ancestors are like the roots holding a tree. And if they detach you from those roots and bring their own democracy, we carry it around while they hold the land, and they deceive you that you have political democracy without any sustenance. Is like you ask a hungry person to be singing kumbaya and praising you when he is hungry, you are fed. So another thing that I would equally want to ask is, if we know that members of the government have done a crime in Asia, in South Korea, in China, they are bring to public humiliation and sanction, while in our own African culture we say a thief, we protect them because they are from our own tribe, they are from our own neighborhood. And I think that is a problem. So for us to be bringing this out is not blaming anybody. It's just the mere fact that as we discuss these things, we educate the majority to be watchful. So finish your point, then I will pass to Colette.
So I agree with you that some of the challenges that have been shared here are not unique to South Africa. You know, the whole issue of corruption, the whole issue of holding leaders accountable. But I think there's hope.
Yes.
Through the African peer review mechanisms, Africa is beginning to hold each other or one another. The leaders are beginning to hold each other accountable and improving the systems. The whole issue of Africa beginning to trade within itself, you know, through Africa trade platforms, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, but Africa is beginning to rise and going back to those values of Ubuntu, to say an injury to one is an injury to all of us. But united we stand, divided we fall, as Kwame Nkrumah has taught us. Africa is beginning to work with each other to ensure the collective good of everyone through various avenues. However, as Colette has said, we need to constantly look at ourselves and say, are we still serving the people? Not even ourselves. You know, are we still, you know, on the right course to serve our people? Because without doing that, you get swallowed up this bubble that says we're okay. Yes, we have feeding schemes, we have this, we are doing this, we are doing that. But how is that whole thing being done? Pace at which it is done. Do we involve the people in solving their own problems too? Going back to those solutions where even at a communal level, you find ways of solving your problems using the collective. We seem to think that we should be doing things for the people, but you know, we have to empower our people and really make them active participants in reshaping their own futures and solving their problems in an African way. So I agree with you. Do you ask us our experiences as one of the issues that we're not addressing, or we address very little, is the persistent evil of patriarchy within our society. Yes, South Africa, through the Bill of Rights and through many laws, gender equity or equality laws, Colette may speak better, from the legal point of view, but that many legislative frameworks that have been put in place to ensure that women, the potential of women is maximized and recognized. However, patriarchal laws still continue, and I'm sure even in Cameroon, access to finances, access to justice, access to, and maybe it's about time that in most of these countries, I'm not sure in your country, I'm not sure in Ghana, I'm not sure in Nigeria, the whole issue of a woman president, I know we may, laugh about it, but it's a very important issue. Women by nature are nurturers. I want to believe that this whole issue, women leading, and just not leading, a token kind of a thing, truly bringing women to lead will bring greater peace in this world, not just in our continent, but by the whole world. Show me a woman who supports war. Women by nature were naturalists, as I said. And we're also saying, even when negotiations are happening, even where conflict is being resolved, ensure the participation of women as mediators. Some of us have been calling on not just paying a lip service to women being mediators, but really make a reality that nothing about us without us being there and leading. When war breaks, when conflict breaks, it is the woman that has to ensure that the family still gets food on the table, they get the kind of attention that they need. The men are not there. It is the women that are also assisting in conflict-ridden societies. So I would like to see more participation of women mediators, more participation in the conflicts in the DRC, everywhere else. How many women mediators are there? In your situation, how many women mediators are there? I'm saying to you, Fru, the more women participate, the better chance for peace, not just in our continent, but in the world. I just want to close it there and say, I have been inspired by great women. They still continue to inspire me. They preach peace. They preach development. No woman would like to see what is happening in Palestine, where children are killed, or the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, or in the DRC. Many women would starve themselves to ensure that their husbands, their families, and their children eat first. We give you the big share and take the little. That's who we are. Ensure that women are in the forefront of peace building. Thank you.
Well, I think that is the mother instinct, but we should equally raise the flag of three powerful women in Africa that we must say they are also championing, and they are the flag bearer, the vice president of Ghana, the president of Tanzania, the president of Namibia. And Namibia,
Yes.
they are, we are looking up to them to bring that their mother instinct, and they are breaking grounds, and we still need more. I am equally talking to two who are also doing a wonderful job and inspiring those who are listening. I want to thank you very much. And I also would like to go back to my root, and that I pay tribute to my Zulu ancestors. That is why I have my traditional wear on my head, and also my grassland traditional culture on me, because I truly believe that our culture is our identity. Our culture follows us wherever we go, like our shadow. Colette, you've been listening. I would like you just to ask you, before going to Cameroon and knowing that Cameroon is a bilingual country, and I also would like us to be thinking positively. Maybe there should be an African language. Swahili is already around East Africa. We know that the colonizers will not want this to happen because it will make it difficult for them. It took only 40 years for China to walk on the ground and emerge as a powerhouse in the world. Are we learning something? So Colette, over to you.
Yeah. So it's just been such a very, very, very interesting debate. We can see that we need more time on this. And I know that Miriam mentioned she was with DERCO. This is a department that my organization, together with others, we have been involved, contributing to the Resolution 1325 National Action Plan on women, peace and security. So I can say that the government does work with civil society, but resources, how to ensure that women mediators play those roles in those conflict-riddled communities, that has not been forthcoming. And this is because that national action plan is 5 years. It ends 2025. This is the deadline. We are reflecting on it, see the impact, the progress, and you can see that women mediators are also received that training as a mediator by DERCO. I've got a certificate, and I've not been able to enforce that. Look at the gun proliferation in the Cape Flats, the gang community, and the taxi violence, the racial clashes and conflicts that we always experience in our country. So I have even given them a challenge that what's the purpose of having this certificate if there is no resources, there's little effort to ensure that we play that role, because South Africa is not a country that fails to respond to conflict crises in the world. I've seen how we contributed a lot, immensely in the continent with resources. DRC, one of the countries where even our soldiers got killed. South Africa has been taking those big, roles, contributing to peace and democracy. And however, in the country, we are not seeing that kind of strides be made, especially when it comes to women, especially when it comes to those progressive laws that you have mentioned, how a country like Cameroon can benefit to the experience in unifying the clashing, the two fractions, with foreign languages. For example, the Franco-speaking or the French-speaking, they see themselves as, they feel arrogant, and they are competing. There's conflict between themselves and the English-speaking. And if one person, like myself, I'll be saying to them, listen, I was not colonized by a French-speaking person, so that's why I do not know any French. My speaking with you in English is not because I'm trying to exalt or to appear, very important, making English to appear to be a significant language over and above French. I'm not interested with these languages. The reason I'm speaking English is just for me, so that it's a language I know and I'm trying to communicate with you. I'm not interested with these languages. Okay, so this is where there's delays. I see a lot. I did mention, Miriam, I really want you to listen to me carefully about what I'm saying about the National Conference. It is a very important political party in the continent, and I'm sure it can be rated very high in the world. So my disappointment is when I see the very same party falling into the same path of our colonizers and of all those that have been sabotaging or causing an injustice. For me, that is painful. That is my pain. The last thing I wanted to do is to compare the ANC and the apartheid, because we suffered. It was very brutal. And for us, they taught us to ensure that there's no violence, black on black violence. That was an education that we were taught. But currently, we see advancement of that. We're seeing our government relax, condoning some of the crimes that amount to crimes against humanity. We can see that it's those serious crimes that amount to sedition, that the government is doing little about it. So for me, and when we talk about the government of national unity, I am not interested with that. For me, I see the ANC as the leading party. I don't know what is the deal. I don't know about all these other parties. I am not interested. They are coming into because they managed to bring in the number. But the ANC, it is the political party that pays credence to the constitution, the laws that we have. They are the ones. They are the advocates of the other parties. For example, the Umkondo and others. They want to chop the constitution into pieces. They are determined to do that. And the ANC is letting by these failures that you are seeing. Because these people are amassing themselves. They are becoming strong. And very soon, we're going to be losing. Who is going to lead the country? Who is going to take over? Because things are very, very... So for me, this is the disappointment. And when I'm saying you are committing worse crimes than the apartheid, yes, the apartheid was our enemy. The apartheid is against any black person. You and me, we are the victims. We are not the friends of white people, especially those that are still holding those values, separate development. But now for the ANC, to be causing the conflict themselves. These are our liberators. When I look at the ANC, I have high regard for them. But for me to come today and speak about the ANC negatively, it pains me. And for me to really consider that, I don't see any difference, because I am even suffering more than during apartheid. The laws are there, democracy is there. It's like dangling a carrot on me. It's worse than a person who had made it clear that no access for you. But here there's democracy, there's human rights. I cannot enjoy. So this is what I'm talking about, Miriam. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And this is delaying progress and democracy in the African continent. A country like Cameroon, for example, prisoners are held, kept in dungeon. One of the conference organizers, I don't know how he managed, but he's still behind bars. He's a politic, what do you call?
Prisoner of conscience.
Of conscience. He's been arrested there for exercising similar values like Bomandela, Desmond Tutu. He's exactly on that terrain, and he is not accepted. There's resistance. There's danger in expressing, as you are saying, freedom of expression is denied. Activists are extrajudicially killed, and we've seen some of the trends here in South Africa. We've seen how activists get arrested, persecuted, surveillance that you are seeing. So for me, these are the disappointments. I didn't want to see my party, my political party, going down the drain or bringing us down the way it has happened within 30 years. 30 years is a small time, definitely, to bring transformation, but to destroy even the potentials that we have. Those potentials should have helped us to open up more doors to grow. You know, Miriam, about 60% or so of the African Union budget is coming from the European Union. The one that is granting us money to resolve conflicts in the continent. And we know that we can't rely and depend on EU. So the member states are not making contributions. We have all the mechanisms that we have contributed as Black people for African solutions for African problems. Why are we not domesticating that? Why are we behind? Why are we not making progress? I'm one of the advocates that are pushing for Pan-Africanism. But you know what, Miriam? I'll be the last person to be recommended to play a role at the UN, to play the role at the African Commission on Human. I'm one of the experts. But why? Because we are exposing human rights violations. We are holding our government accountable. And for me, I'm not anti-government. I love my government and that political party I mentioned to you that brought us, that took us from enslavement, that opened up our eyes, that ensure we receive all this right. One that regressing us, Miriam.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, you have really seen that this discussion cannot end today. And this is just the beginning. I will use this opportunity to graciously and humbly thank my guest all the way from the mother continent in South Africa. You are the first women that have graced this platform with your wisdom. That motherly instinct of a woman can be felt across the land. And I agree with both of you that women power should be given a chance, and it is actually picking steam around Africa. I would like to thank my honorable guests, and I think my audience really had a quite interesting discussion. I have learned a lot from this lady. I would like to invite you again next time to continue this discussion. Before I say goodbye, I would like to thank the Almighty God, because everything that has happened peacefully, so diligently, is by God's blessing. And before I say so long, ladies, please give your closing remark. Colette.
Take the opportunity to thank you very much, and my sister here, Miriam. I was really inspired listening to her. She's really has done a lot. She sacrificed a lot for the country. She's one of those people that, as she has mentioned, has been in exile, and she's back, and she's continued to be loyal citizen, and she wants the best for the country. We are those people who really want this country to do well, to succeed, but we should not compromise on the human rights and on the suffering on the ground. There are people who are still waiting for the fruit of democracy, our beautiful constitution and our beautiful values and the gains that we fought so hard for with blood and sweat seems to be like wasted. Getting us anyway. We are looking at our young people, the youth. They need the futures of tomorrow. We are leaving them hardship. She said there's hope. Everybody has hope, and we should not be blamed when we express that. It is the truth that will help the government to excel.
Thank you very much, Colette.
Let me quickly thank you, Prue and Colette, for thoughtful thought-provoking discussions. I truly enjoyed listening to you also, Colette. And don't get me wrong, constructive criticisms are good. And I've listened and I've also indicated that in spite of the challenges that are there, there's still hope. And me and you should still continue to inspire the youth of this country, the women of this country, that we can still fight for a better tomorrow. The African National Congress, the National Democratic Revolution mission is still on. A united, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa is still relevant. And who said attainment of that was going to be easy? The reconstruction and development agenda must still continue. And yes, I agree with you that both within ANC structures, but also government, there must be consequences for breaking the promises that we have made. There must be consistency in dealing with malfeasant practices that are derailing the total liberation of our people. So I'm saying to the youth, continue the battle. And yes, it is difficult when majority of our young people are unemployed, lack the relevant skills, and at times even that financial support that they're supposed to get is diverted to people who don't qualify. Those are systemic issues so that they are ready to lead. Some of us are ending. We have done our part. We call on others to continue this journey. This journey is far from being over. But thank you, Fru, also for providing this opportunity. We hope that this is not the last part of it, as you said, the role of African women in mediation processes, in building long-lasting peace, not just in our continent, not just in our region, but throughout the world. But thank you so much. Thank you for your viewers too.
Well, with that message and that powerful message, it just solidifies that the African mother, I am because we are. And that motherhood that nurtured us and make Africa Mother Africa will definitely take us across and spread the spirit, the doctrine of Ubuntu and forgiveness. This discussion is going to illuminate the minds, our minds. Discussions like this, that if we encourage around Africa by listening to each other, we will be carving a solution to our problem. So I have hope, and African Hour is graciously appreciative for your humility to accept to be on this show. You are watching African Hour, which is a platform for Africans to talk about issues that concern us Africans and the world. Because we believe here on African Hour, we believe that if you don't tell your story and if you allow someone else to tell your story, they will glorify their misdeeds and not praise you to all. And on that note, I'd like to thank my honorable guests, all from Johannesburg, first of its kind, to grace this platform, and saying that after everything, to God be the glory. So long. My name is Fru Nde Nkimbe, coming to you from Boston. So long and good night. Amanda, 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 Amanda,